Once upon a time, stories of fantasy. People suffering with OCD aren't living a fantasy. Even though there are a lot of myths that go around obsessive compulsive disorder, their stories are real. These are stories from the OCD side. Real people, real stories, brought to you by FamilyOCD.com and InvisibleWheelchair.com. We want your story. Go to InvisibleWheelchair.com and contact us to tell us your story here. OCD is real. OCD treatments are real. OCD recovery is real. And so are these stories.
You haven't even left yet and it already hurts. You haven't even called yet and my throat already burns. And every time you touch me I feel like crying. 'Cause every time you love me I know we're hiding. Yeah, we're making the most of our time. I'm holding on to messages you write. The undertow's all I know, and it's taking me down.
You are listening to the smooth voice of Kylie Odetta. Today, I'm excited to be introducing you to this up-and-coming superstar of music. Kylie Odetta is a professional singer, speaker, writer, producer, voiceover artist, actress, youth activist, model, and entertainer. Kylie is joining me today because she has overcome bullying, anxiety, and OCD. Kylie is the epitome of a bright and shining woman from Greenville pursuing her dreams and passions and giving back to her community that she loves so much. Kylie is a 22-year-old Greenville, South Carolina native and has toured both nationally and internationally as a musician. She has opened up for artists Gavin DeGraw, Colbie Callait, Matt Kearney, Austin Mahone, Liz Weiss, and Kelly Pickler. She has played the main stage at Fall for Greenville and is known for hosting her annual secret Christmas concert to benefit the local Salvation Army. She has done voiceover work with Dwell Bible App, Acu Oasis Contact Lens, and Spartanburg Community College, to name a few. Kylie also created a youth program called Dare to Dream in 2014 that she has since taken into dozens of local high schools and middle schools around the upstate. The program focuses on showing youth that they are capable of overcoming bullying, anxiety, and OCD and pursuing their dreams. Her goal is to infuse people with the empowering spirit and intoxicating joy. If you're interested in being captivated by a vibrant personality, soul-touching music, and a unique, uplifting story of overcoming some major anxiety obstacles, then listen now as she tells her story here. Well, Kylie, welcome to the Invisible Wheelchair's Stories from the OCD Side podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And today I really wanted to focus on your story because as I hear about your story, as I listen to your music, I really feel like you can be an inspiration, and you are an inspiration, I should say, and will be an inspiration to so many people, both young and old, I think, in a way. So I really want to talk about your story and how the complexity of it.
Yeah.
Where do we begin? Tell me where it all began for you.
Where it all began. You know, I'm 22 and I started writing songs when I was 8 years old. So I guess that's kind of where my musical journey began. And I performed in my school talent show when I was 11, and that was really when I knew that I wanted to be a singer and a musician for the rest of my life. I came off the stage and I had terrible stage fright at the time. So I guess I did have a little bit of anxiety and nerves, I think, than just normal stage fright nerves. But it was kind of extreme because I would make my family go into an opposite room and shut the door, and then I would whisper sing behind the door so they couldn't hear me. I set up lots of rules for how they could hear me sing because I was so nervous. But I came off the stage that night when I was 11, and I looked at my mom and I said, I want to be a singer. She said, okay, how do we do that? And I was like, I don't really know. I just know that I love this so much and I want to start now. And so, they had a friend who had a little makeshift studio in his attic of the house out in South Carolina. We recorded my first CD when I was 12. And then because I started being so passionate about music at such a young age, I actually got bullied really heavily in middle school from just peers, not really understanding why I was so passionate about music and just, I think, pointing out anything that's different. Kids love to do that. At the time, that was really difficult, but I'm thankful that I had my family to support me and encourage me to keep going. Later on in life, I ended up getting to open up for some really cool artists when I was 14 and 15, like Colbie Callait and Gavin DeGraw at local festivals in South Carolina. And then I ended up going on my first national tour when I was 18, recording music all along the way. I went out, I graduated high school a year early from online school because I was already touring and traveling a lot. So I was, I had a career, I had a lot of stuff that was going really positive for me. And then I think it was when I was 19 or 20, I got hit with a really severe case of anxiety and OCD intrusive thoughts. And it was triggered by a breakup that I had, a lot of emotional things going on in my family at the time. And it just seemed like at the start of the summer, boom, all of these thoughts that I could not escape from started attacking my mind. And I had suffered with anxiety, like I said, for a little while, I think, but I didn't really know what was going on. And so I ended up seeing a therapist during that time. I ended up trying all kinds of different things to try and overcome what was going on in my mind. And I did end up finding healing, but it was a really long journey and it was a really kind of difficult experience. And I'm 22 now, like I said, so that was a couple years ago, but I ended up writing lots of music about that time. And my hope, I just released it. It's called Roots and Petals. My hope is that through my struggles and my triumph over them, other people might be able to relate, first of all, and find hope that they can overcome them too.
How did you see the anxiety and OCD? How did it affect your music? Now, you mentioned that you wrote about it, which I think was probably part of a good therapy for you, I would imagine. But how else do you think that it might have affected it? Did it bring it down some, or did it change it somehow?
Oh, absolutely. When I was going through that, I had pretty much most of my life been a pretty bubbly, vibrant personality. I was a happy kid, and although I had stage fright, like I talked about, I enjoyed what I did. I had a great family, and I was in a really positive place most of the time. When I really started suffering with these thoughts and anxiety, I completely lost my confidence. I lost my identity. I feel like I lost my personality because I just felt like I could not even escape my own mind. And I was thinking all these horrible things that I was thinking about myself were true. And it really took the wind out of my sails for months. I mean, I didn't write music at all during the actual time that I was dealing with that. I didn't hardly write any music. It was when I started coming out of that season that I was able to kind of look back and write on what I was going through. But at the time, it was just too difficult, honestly. And so for a period of time, it majorly affected me as a person, obviously. But then I think looking back and coming out of that season, it impacted me in a positive way because it gave so much more depth to what I wrote about. And I remember specifically a conversation I had with my friend. I was like, I don't understand why this happened. I don't understand why I had to go through that. And he was like, you know what? I don't think we'll ever truly know, but you now have the ability to empathize with people who don't want to live another day because they're so overwhelmed with their emotions and what's going on in their brain. And he was like, you've been there. You've not wanted to live another day. You've been to the depths of that dark, and you can look somebody in the face and say that you get it. And I was like, wow. I mean, I still wish I would have never gone through that. But now, like I said, looking back, I'm grateful that I did, because I have been able to talk to people, and I've heard stories of people who relate to exactly what I went through as well. And I've seen them realize that, wow, I'm not alone. And wow, maybe I can take another step, take another breath, live another day. And that means everything to me. So although I don't wish it upon anybody, I would go through it again for that simple fact.
How did you get through it? What did you use? What kind of techniques? What got you through to the other side of it?
Yeah, so it was a mix of things. I'll just kind of list them off, then I'll go a little bit more into detail. Like I said, I spoke to a therapist during that time. I did my own research on cognitive behavioral therapy. I practiced mindfulness, and I really leaned into my faith and talking to close people in my life. And so it was really important for me to be able to have at least somebody that I could be completely honest with about what was going on and what type of thoughts I was having, because that, I think, is a big thing, is that you feel so ashamed almost. You're like, why am I experiencing this, and why me, and why these thoughts? And if you feel like you can't talk to anybody, then I feel like I probably wouldn't have made as much progress. So just being able to have somebody that you can be completely honest with no judgment was so crucial for me. And then, like I said, the mindfulness was a big part of it too, meaning that I specifically spoke scripture over myself, which from the Bible, which was, the one that I clung to the most was, for I was not given a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and sound mind, which is 2 Timothy 1:7. And so I had a friend encourage me to do that every day, multiple times a day, when I was feeling fearful or, like I was crazy. And that verse, it says, no, I'm not that. I'm actually full of love. I'm full of power, and I have a sound mind. And so even when I didn't believe that, I started to say it actually out loud over myself. And I just practiced renewing my mind by staying on that truth and taking that as truth rather than the things I was thinking, So I was replacing those kind of thoughts with another positive thought. Another big thing for me was just simple and fun distraction, because it was kind of, when you start to ruminate on your thoughts, they just create more pathways, and it ends up intensifying your suffering. And so when I would try so hard to don't think that, I was thinking more and more and more and more. So what I started to do was, when I would have a thought, I would first take the emotional connection away from it. My therapist helped me with that a lot, knowing that we have crazy thoughts all the time. Everybody has them all day long, but that doesn't mean that they're true. But, people with OCD or anxiety often latch onto them, myself included, at that time, and spin on them and think about them and dwell on them, and then it gets stuck. And so what I would do instead is I would literally visualize myself saying hello to this thought, like it's a movie screen passing through your head, like credits are rolling through, say hello, and then watch it say, okay, goodbye. And almost accept the thought, not that it's true, but that it's going to come, and it doesn't have to be scary. So that was a big thing for me, because I just freaked out whenever things would pop into my head. But as I started to prepare myself and say, okay, this is probably going to come into my head again, but when it does, I'm not going to attach fear to it. I'm just going to say, yeah, there's a thought, and there that thought goes. And so I would do a lot of that and a lot of distraction where, again, if I was finding myself going into a spiral, I would run outside and jump around in the yard, or go call a friend, or, listen to my favorite song, or do something, draw, that brought me back into the physical world, rather than just spending so much time in my brain sitting and thinking.
That's wonderful. I love the fact that you use mindfulness, because that's something that I've been doing more and more work on. In fact, there's now a workbook called Mindfulness for OCD, and it's really good. How did you, as far as that's how you did as far as the OCD. How did you handle the bullying part? What kinds of things did you do? Anything differently to that, or is it you use a lot of the same techniques for that?
So when I was bullied, the main things that I did was really lean into, like I said, those few trusted people that love me and encouraged me and reminded me who I was. I think it's so important, and you can feel so alone in times of being bullied or times of, experiencing OCD, but to have people that believe in you and can remind you who you really are when you maybe can't see that, or you're thinking, I don't know who I am anymore. But those people who can tell you, hey, I love you, I see you, I believe in you, and I'm here for you. I think that's super important. And that was honestly the biggest thing during that time, because I did have people who were speaking some encouragement into me rather than just negative voices that were saying, you know, you should stop, or you're not good, or this or that, or we don't want you here. I had a couple people in my life, my parents and a few close friends, who were like, no, we want you here. We love you. We love what you're doing. Keep going. Having that, I think, was honestly the biggest part during that time, because that was back in middle school. And so I don't know what I would have done without a supportive family, to be honest.
So who was your, and I guess this has to do with the musical, who was your influence? Who did you admire, listen to, that led you to where you are?
So it's actually crazy, because as a musician, I get asked this question a lot of like, who is your musical influence? And people, it's always hard for me, because people usually have like one or two people they're like, oh, this person inspired me to be a musician. But honestly, I listened to such a variety of music growing up, and there was never one person in particular who inspired me. But if I had to choose somebody, I'd actually say my dad. Because my dad, he used to write songs when we were younger, and he would sing us to sleep, and my mom would sing us to sleep too. And so I just got to see him do that and sing us to sleep every night. We would sit out on the couch and watch CMT music videos late at night when I couldn't sleep. Again, like, he just really encouraged me in music from a very young age, and I got to see him do it. Not professionally, but, you know, it was a passion of his, and it was always in the house. I think that just kind of infiltrated into me very naturally, rather than an artist that I saw that I wanted to be like, if that makes sense.
How do you see yourself wanting to inspire others and influence others?
Honestly, I really want for people to listen to my music and know that, number one, they can connect to it and hopefully feel like they're not the only one. Because a big thing throughout all of life, and especially when I was suffering with anxiety and OCD, is that I felt like I knew that other people had suffered from this, but I felt in my specific thoughts, in my specific emotions, I was isolated. To really just allow people who maybe don't express themselves through writing or have a outlet like that, to find the words that speak to what they're feeling, so that they can know, wow, like, I am not alone. You know, there's somebody else out here who has experienced this, and this speaks to me, and this makes me feel like we're together in this. So I want people to connect and feel like they're not alone, because they're not, truly. I mean, the craziest, worst thing you've probably ever thought, somebody out there has thought that as well, you know?
Yeah.
And so we're all human. We all have those crazy things that happen. And two, that, you know, there is hope to overcome these types of things, and that you don't have to be marked or labeled with something for your whole life. You know, like, you get to decide and choose who you are every day. And we have crazy thoughts, and we have emotional experience, and we have traumatic events that happen in our life that cause these things. But at the end of the day, those things don't define us. We're a human being who deserves love first, and who can step out and decide who we want to be that day. And so I want to empower and encourage people with my music to feel confident, and to feel like they can go ask for help and just get a little bit of courage, because there's hope on the other side. And they've seen somebody who has been to the depths of that, not wanting to go another day, and now is not living in that same space anymore. So really just to provide some connectedness and some hope and joy. Like, I think sometimes we just need to get back to simple basics. Like, life is beautiful, and there's a lot of hard things, but there's a lot of amazing, wonderful, magical experiences to have. And if we can break out of our brains and open our eyes to see that, then we're all for the better, you know? Like, it just makes life more fun and more easy to bear when we do go through hard times.
That's wonderful. That is an inspiration just by itself. I think I mentioned to you, I don't know if you'd be interested in giving us a little taste of a song.
Yeah.
Is that something you can do impromptu?
That is something I can do. Would you like me to play piano and sing, or just sing?
That would be great. The
Okay.
piano would be wonderful too, yes. And I don't know if you want to give a little teaser to the new song you've got coming out or not. You don't have to. It's up to you.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely do that. So I will sing a song. Let's see. I'll sing a little bit of Roots and Petals, which is my title track off my EP, which is out now. So this is that song, and it's about my battle with anxiety and overcoming. Though my roots are deep, I can feel my petals withering. Yeah, my knuckles bleed. I can hear my mind scream retreat. Some days I'm going towards the light. Some days I listen to the lights. I don't always feel like trying to hold back the darkness, but Lord knows I fight. 'Cause when I fight, I know that I can lose. In the face of truth, I'm stronger than you. So I will give you no power, no attention, no time. Yeah, goodbye, go pass on by. I'm taking back my mind. There you go. Thank you.
And I like your friend back there in the back there.
My dog.
Yes.
That's Zella.
Zella. Yeah. We have 2 dogs and 2 cats and 3 cats outside, so I very
They're
much
the best.
appreciate it.
Pets are the best.
Yes, they are. Finally, the last thing I would say is, how would you recommend people finding out more about you? Maybe a website, whatever. Give me some thoughts for my audience to know how they can find you best.
So you can find me on my website at KylieOdetta.com. I'm also on all socials like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. So if you just Google Kylie Odetta, you'll probably find me somehow. But the website is probably the easiest one-stop shop for people.
And of course, I'll remind my audience that I'll have all of that information up on the Invisible Wheelchair podcast website so that you can find it there also. So Kylie, it's been wonderful to talk with you. I've really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the music. It sounds beautiful. And I thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been so great to talk.
So that is our story for this podcast. Remember, we want your story told here. If you want to tell us your success story or just want to tell us where you're at, simply go to www.invisiblewheelchair.com, then click on the Tell Us Your Story on the top left side, or just click the Contact Don button on the right side towards the bottom. We want to give you a voice to your story. Until next time, keep working on your story for a happily ever after ending.